Study session, Mayor and City Council meeting, 3:30 p.m., Tuesday, August the 9th, 2022, City Hall Complex. I call this meeting to order. Okay, public portion. We're not going to have a Pledge of Allegiance? Well, we are going to have a Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Madam Clerk, pledge of
Yes,
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, public portion. At this point. Number 3, discussion items. A, discussion and direction of amending school year 2022-2023 salary range schedules and job descriptions. I placed this on the agenda, also Councilman Gradias. John, you please? Or Mr. Dickey?
Sure.
Okay.
Council, there was some discussion about this at the budget retreat, and then the mayor and Paulo both come forward, Councilmember Octavio, and the mayor came forward and just said, why don't staff get a few numbers together and bring it to City Council and just kind of for discussion only, really, at this time, and maybe some direction for staff. But anyway, I'll have Gene probably, was it going to be you, Gene, or you? Yeah, why don't you just get up and, John, and kind of go through kind of what we were looking at and make some suggestions and you see it there in your packet, correct?
Yes.
So you can ask questions as we go, but it's really, we just put some numbers together, what it would mean to bring our minimum salary ranges up to a certain amount, which would make us very competitive, and it would do a lot for those that maybe don't make quite as much. So, and what it means to the city, how much it would cost in the budget and everything like that. And I think we looked at 2 tiers. John can explain.
Yes, go ahead.
Run some numbers. These are total numbers. That good, Carmen? Mr. Mayor, we crunched some numbers. These are total numbers and the employees that it would affect in the departments. They're part of your attachment here. To bring our starting salary for the city of Nogales to a range 40 and applying our phase 2 to that, bringing everybody up to range 40 would be a total of $58,918.83. And if we brought all of our employees and started everybody at a new range of 43, that would be, it would affect 85 employees, and the total on that one is $234,250. And then, so that would be eliminating from our payroll schedule anything under range 42. Currently, we go down to range 36.
And if you look at the salary range schedule on the next page, it shows what that number is, the minimum, the midpoint, the maximum. And you divide that by 2,080, you'll come to what the hourly rate would be.
Correct. If you get the minimum or any salary that we have at the city of Nogales for a full-time 40-hour employee, you divide it by 2080, and that will give you your hourly rate. Unless you're a fireman, then you divide it by 2912, and that gives you your hourly rate.
Yeah.
We like to talk at the city in total annual salaries because it's a lot different from the private sector. I can tell you that all of our employees, full-time employees, work a very minimum of 2080 hours. A lot of them work much more than 2080, but we don't send our employees home if it gets slow or something like that, like other businesses and stuff. If it's slow, there's not enough business, punch out, go home. I was affected like that when I was in the private sector. But at the city, we schedule our employees and we pay our employees 2,080 hours a year. And so the numbers that are reflected in the budget, that would be the effect on the budget. That's not just salaries for the employees, that's the salary increases plus the EREs. So as you know, we pay insurance for our employees, we pay retirements for our employees, and other costs.
So John, on the second page where it says general fund, 49,952.
Yes, sir.
I know the other ones are under HERF and under enterprise funds and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
The general fund would be what departments would be?
So it's easy. General fund is all departments except water, sewer, sanitation, housing.
So that's where the majority are that have nothing to do with I mean, HERF funds and housing and enterprise funds.
32 of the employees that are within general fund
Yeah.
are less than a range 40 in our salary schedule, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
To put this simpler, from my understanding, is that the first 58,001 is bringing our employees to a $14 starting salary, and the other one is bringing them all up to 15. Am I correct in assuming that?
You're absolutely correct.
The question I have, based on all this information, how many of these employees fall short of the midpoint, or have we reached midpoint on based on the salary study that we used for our
Right.
meetings before?
So that's a great question. I didn't calculate that, Councilman. I'm going to assume that hardly any, if any of them at all, are at midpoint. And these numbers that are reflected here are exactly what you said, plus plus applying phase 2 to this. So as we applied phase 2 throughout the board, if we moved everybody up from a 26, or not 26, but from a 36, and everybody up to a minimum of 40, we would move them up to a 40 plus their phase 2. So that's what that number reflects. But I don't know I don't know the answer to the question
Right, that's why we're
of
here.
how many are less than.
That's why we're here for the study session. The thing is, though, that would get us closer to the midpoint, which is what we've been striving for to this point. Because moving forward, we're looking at phase 3, right? After, in the future, because we try to move to phase 2, correct?
That's correct. The goal or the direction that staff heard from mayor and council was to bring everybody to a competitive wage,
Correct.
which would be midpoint. Anything that we do brings them closer to midpoint. However, I can tell you that you see where it says the range 40.
Right.
So if we brought, let's just make an assumption, okay? We brought a current person who's at a 38, Councilman, and we moved him to a 40. Would he be any closer to midpoint than he is today? Well, it depends, because the way we're moving people from minimum to midpoint is years of service up to a maximum of 10%, right, or 10 years. So it would depend on the employee. If the employee had just started, right, and he's a 36 and he just started last week, he would be at the new salary range of 40. So it depends on the employee.
Also, in doing this, I'm assuming this would make our employees more marketable, help in retention, and giving them a better starting point. Try and keep them here with the city for longer. Is that correct?
If I were to look at it like as an employee barely starting, you're starting at a 40 instead of a 36. So if you're looking at doing a career path and you want to move up from a 40, let's say all the way up to a 60 or whatever, you're already that much further ahead and moving forward. Seeking, different positions with the city, or like in the case of police and fire, you would be seeking a promotion.
One more question.
And now I'm looking for a staff recommendation if they're funding to go ahead and move towards on something like this.
So I'll let the funding lady talk to you about that. If you don't mind.
I have more questions.
So 40, just so you understand, a salary range of 40, according to this scale, is 29,000.
So a salary range of 40, according to that scale minimum. I just closed this because I was going to go.
29,051.90.
That would be, yeah.
That's what it says here. So that would be the minimum, not the midpoint, the minimum.
Correct, sir.
That's where you start.
That's where you start.
So that's a jump from 36 to 40. That's a jump of about almost $3,000.
The 40 would be 29,051.
2905.
That would be anybody who comes to work for the city, a full-time employee, that's where they would start. No, I shouldn't say that. That might not be true. Anybody who comes to work for the city, whose job classification is a 40, that's where they would start.
Yes, that's what.
Okay.
Yes, that's what this is for. All right.
I have a quick question here.
Go ahead, Council.
By looking at this, 85 employees would benefit from this. If we agree to this, it would be 85 employees total?
That's
43 employees.
43 employees?
for the first,
43 would be at 14.
Okay, at okay.
40, range 40.
Range 40. Okay, on the other side, if you go to 43, then it's,
And the reason why, maybe I can make it very cleared up. The reason why I don't say that if we go with a range 40, that everybody will be at 29, that we're less than that. That's not true. Everybody will be at a range 40, so they get that minimum range, plus their years of service up to 10%. So I'm very clear when I say that because that's how misinformation is given. So that's not what this number reflects. This number reflects bringing either 43 people up to a 40, right? Plus what their phase 2 was, or their years of service, and their EREs would have an effect on the budget of the $59,000. And same applies to the 43. The 40 represents a $14 an hour minimum, right? And the 43 represents a $15 an hour minimum.
and just on top of,
Again, do you have a question?
yes.
John, going back to the years of service, when you start a new position here at the city, and let's assume you're working in another department, and you move to another department,
Yes.
where do you start that person off? With the years of experience at the other position, or do you start them at that salary range?
That's a
With
great
no
question.
experience, yeah.
Thank you for answering, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
So the way that we put the salary in place is you take your years of service with you. So it matters not where you're at on the salary range. So if you change from, let's say, you're at a job position of, let's just say 44, and now for some reason you applied for another job, or you got it, or you're promoted like a lieutenant or something like that, and you went from a 44 to a 48, you would be at a 48 minimum plus your years of service up to 10. Or if you're already there, capping them at midpoint. So those are two things that we do. Because we do have some anomalies to the pay scale. But yeah, that's where it would be at. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Just have to think a little bit more about it. So, so is that true for classified people that move up to certified positions? tell me a little bit about, does that experience as a classified move into a certified position? So you want an example?
Sure.
So you're a secretary and you get your degree and then you moved into a certified position. All those years of being classified, does that take into consideration when you're going to be placed on the range of years of experience?
Okay, so the way we currently have, Ms. Mayor, the way we currently have it right now is your years of service for the city of Nogales. I don't know if we differentiate years of service as a classified or a certified. It's just years of service.
Is there a policy about that? Or you don't know?
Not that I'm aware of.
What?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that you're aware of.
I'm not even real sure the difference between classified and certified too. So,
Well, one is, one is not degreed and at will, and the other one is contract, right?
Okay.
I don't know. You tell me.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
The difference between classified and certified?
Yes, sir.
I don't think there is. Not that I know. Is there?
Not that I know. No.
I think in our job descriptions, there's
I
no,
think they're all classified as full-time employees. That's the classification, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if certified, she's meaning something different.
I know within some of our employee pool, there are certain certifications. Many of our, police officers, a certified police officer, right?
Yeah.
But he's not a certified lieutenant. He's not a certified sergeant. He's just a certified police officer. Heavy equipment operator is, I guess you can consider a certified heavy equipment operator. And so there's different certifications that go along with different job
Well,
classifications that we have, job description,
yeah.
I think.
I'll continue. Maybe I'm not making myself clear. So there are some positions that require a bachelor's degree, right? So if that's what I meant by being certified, or maybe it's not the right word. I should just say degreed. If the job description is requesting for a degree,
So
does that take into consideration when you're placing them?
yeah.
Yeah.
So what we did here was all of our job descriptions, every single one of them has a salary range classification to them. And that's what we applied to the job description.
Okay. So it's okay. And one last question, since it's the study session. So why didn't we do what we're doing today at the very phase one? Why didn't we get these employees to that range? Why didn't we kind of do it, give the raises first and not move these to the midpoint?
So the reason why we're doing this today is because it came forward by Mr. Mayor and Mr. Gradius, and they wanted to know from staff what it would cost, right, to bring people up from a salary, all people up, and start them at either a salary range 40 or the salary range 43.
I might just want to add that during the budget workshop that council, the direction at that time was we want to bring them up, and the number at that time was let's get them up to at least $13 an hour, and whatever that meant. So that's what happened, and that's why we had that little increase to bring the low everyone. So nobody now makes less than 13 an hour as far as the class, the position. We didn't talk. I mean, there was a little bit of talk that McDonald's paying 15. Why don't we? So, but there was no real direction until afterwards to say, "Hey, staff, why don't you bring us something to see what it would cost the city if we were able to do this to all our employees and be a little more competitive, keep people a little longer, recruit, stuff like that." So that's kind of what we're presenting to you. I'll just have to. There's any questions?
Well, yeah, actually, I brought that question to you, Mr. Dickey, during the hearings that we had for the budget. And the reason it was because there was talk that the federal government wanted to bring it to a certain level. Remember, Gene, we talked about that?
That's correct.
And we said, okay, what happens if they do come up with that? I think, Mr. Bonilla, you mentioned that. What would happen if the federal government would bring it to that level? What are we going to do? Are we still going to stay down here, or are we going to bring everybody to that level? That was a discussion, but we didn't follow through with it. We talked about that at the time. You remember that, John? We talked about that. So, but at this point, can we have Jean on the podium, please? Jean, the last question that Mr. Radia said is, can we afford it? This is, I know, but we need to have an idea or a projection from here to the end of the year.
Right. So for this year, I can say, yes, I believe we can afford it. But if you want to talk sustainability for the future years, I don't know if this recession is going to hit us that hard. And I wouldn't want to say, let's do it. And then next June have to tell all of my directors, you have to get rid of 5 people because we went ahead and did this. I mean, I can't guarantee what's going to happen, So can we right now?
But you are talking for the 40.
For the 43.
Okay.
Yes, for the bigger one, yes. The 40, I really don't have a concern about the 40. But the 43 would be my concern for the future.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
if we were to have a recommendation from staff for council to consider or maybe bring back, would be, because it looks like the feds might be raising, or the state of Arizona might be raising the minimum wage to 13 something, and we're at 13, so that would affect us anyway. I would recommend that council considers maybe we implement or look at the range, the 40, starting January 1, and then bring back during the budget and talk about the 43 at that time. Even if, and that also gives us a year to see how the economy's going, how our revenues are coming in, which are doing really, really well at this time. So anyway, that would be kind of staff's recommendation. If you were to do anything, you just do the 40 at this time and wait, which would be January 1 or whenever council wants. And then next budget, talk about the 43.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is why I was asking earlier, why wasn't this done before those raises were given in the past?
I really don't have an answer for that, other than there was some discussion and there wasn't any clear direction other than the 13, going to the 13. So if that was the direction given, staff had no problem with going that way. So the 13 just came from our workshop and discussion in that. And it came up a couple times, what about 15? We just thought that was it just wasn't something that said, hey, guys, bring us back this.
Yeah.
So we did the 13, did the budget with the 13, because that was kind of the direction given. And that's why, council member.
I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
Just to make it clear, I was, listen to this today workshop that you guys constantly refer to. And that not at one point was that discussed that was for sure going to be done. And I talked to you about that. So I just want to make it clear so we could be transparent about no miscommunication. And that was the reason I'm bringing up why wasn't it perhaps discussed before the raises were given, so that the bottom quartile can, get the pie could be divided, if you will, evenly, whatever we could do regarding that. So that's the point I wanted.
Mayor, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Mr. Dickey, from what I remember, that the reason we hit the $13 mark was because, from what I remember, is that we weren't staying competitive with McDonald's. They were starting their employees at $13.90 an hour. So that's what we sort of got that number at $13 at least. That's from what I remember.
Yes, go ahead.
When we did the budget meetings, our goal was to get us close to midpoint on the salary study that had been paid for by the city in the past, and that was our ultimate goal. And I think we got to it, and I was really happy with it. I then began thinking about it and trying to find a way to get our employees that are in the lower tier to be more competitive because we're losing people. So I asked for this study to be done. And I didn't want to wait another year so we can have a crack at it. So I just thought we could have a presentation or a study session that would allow us to look at the numbers and make a informed decision moving forward. That's the whole basis on this item.
Were you going to say something, somebody?
I just think that hitting at 40, it should be okay. I think it's a safe bet.
Mr. Massey, on the amending of this, would there be any issue giving direction to it right now, or should we wait for a council meeting, or to action meeting? On a study session?
Right, it is direction, but it's also, I mean, it's discussion, but it's also as possible direction. So what the direction would be to present or have staff work on something to present to city council in the, it looks like the general consensus of bringing something back that could be effective as of January 1. Yeah, so that would be appropriate direction, but
So we'd have a motion.
right, you could be in motion, sure, but the final legal action would be on a future agenda item where it would be an order to implement what it is that you're directing staff to do to bring back to council.
Basically, we don't need to vote on this, just give direction. Or,
I think a motion for direction is appropriate, Mayor, so thank you.
and then the motion, second. All right. So with that, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Mr. Dickey? You got your direction.
Thank you, Mayor.
Gene? All right. Okay, B, discussion of how the city plans to use ARPA funds to improve the quality of life for Nogales residents. I put this on the agenda and also Councilmember Montiel. So could I have a little explanation, John? Could you do it, or Mr. Dickey?
I can start, but I'm going to.
What we can do with the money, but let me hear you, let me hear you say it.
All right, so we don't have a big list of exactly what we can do, but we'd like to have a discussion and get council's thoughts on it. We have approximately 3,500,000, it's 3.2.
Yeah, 3.2 million.
About 3.2 million available that council can look at to see how you would like to spend it. Staff is here to answer questions, to give you some suggestions or recommendations. There's something in there that I had Gene look in to see if we would be able to fund through that, and I'll bring that up as we're discussing to see if that's something that you guys would be interested in. But anyway, we have 3.2, and that 3.2 needs to be spent by 2027. Oh, 2026. Okay, I was thinking 2027. So that gives us about 4 years from now. Anyway, so it's open. Gene, if you could come up to the, in case there's questions directed to you, and you have a list of a few things that you know we can do. And we know one of the things that was been thrown out there is businesses and supporting and doing that. So we have some ideas when we come to that too, but we'll let council go ahead and discuss.
Go ahead, Gene.
Okay. So we've talked quite a bit about our businesses here in Nogales, and there's a lot of fees and such that they pay to be here in the city. So the staff got together, and one thing that we talked about was the occupational tax that they pay us. Not every business pays the tax. It would be about $650,000 that would relieve them of paying next year, if that's one choice. So that money, we wouldn't lose the money, because it would simply go from ARPA, instead of going out, it would help them by not having to pay. Most of the businesses pay between 100 to 200. Some of them pay 600 every quarter. So some businesses, it would help quite a bit more. So that was one suggestion that we had talked about. Another one we had talked about was the sewer and water connection fees for some of our businesses, the newer ones coming to town, helping them by not making them pay that fee. Some of them, it's not very much, and other ones, it's quite a bit depending on how much connection they need. The third one we spoke about was the building permit fees, is waiving those for, we're thinking a year on all of this stuff, but I mean, you know, there's just a few suggestions. So building permit fees would be a third one we talked about.
Go ahead.
Before we continue with what we can use this money for, I just want a little bit of clarification.
Sure.
First, what was the designation of ARPA funds? If we don't spend it, what happens to the funds? And I also would like to be informed about the legal requirements or constraints that come along with those funds, because I'm sure the feds designated it to go or be used in some way, shape, or form. So I'd just like a little more information on that.
Okay. So in the past, the mayor and the council have voted to use the funds to pay for the current PSPRS. It has nothing to do with the unfunded liability. That is completely separate. It was for the current year's PSPRS, which then released funds from our general fund to be used in other ways. So the unfunded liability, no, that cannot be used. That is one of the big no-nos. So we have never done that. It's always been for the current year. When it comes to some of the other legal things, I don't know if Mr. Massey would know a little bit more.
I think you've covered the groundwork, as don't put it into the unfunded liability. I think the rest is pretty open. But before we do anything, of course, I would do further research just to make sure that whatever we decided is okay. But that's the only immediate limitation that I'm aware of.
You know, my only concern, is that when you start helping out businesses with the fees, then the money runs out, then what do?
Right.
Do we end up holding?
Yeah.
And everybody comes back and starts paying fees?
Right. And that's
That-
why we wanted to
that's-
bring it to you guys.
That's my only concern. See, because you only help out benefits right now, and then when the money runs out,
Right.
nobody gets any help.
I agree.
So is it, if you're gonna use money like that, and you only have, say you have 3 million, all right? What I think the best thing to do is use it mainly businesses that are gonna open up, all right? But I mean, you don't have to give them the whole thing. Say the connection fees. Say designate it to one thing, so that you make sure that this will go
Okay.
the 4 years or whatever time we have. Otherwise, I'm gonna tell you, it's not gonna go that far.
Right.
It's not gonna go that far, because the minute you get a warehouse coming in and their connection fee is, just a sewer connection fee and water, $50,000, there goes half of it right there.
And that's why we brainstormed and wanted to come to you with just a few ideas to get you guys brainstorming,
Yeah.
so then we can kind of work together
Because
to figure out
the
what.
thing is that the best thing to do is let's not jump at this right away. Let's talk about it. And you as staff should talk about it more and bring it back to us, because otherwise what you're going to do is just here we go again, put a Band-Aid on something, and then it's gone. It's not something that once we continuously get money, because we're not going to get any more of this money.
Right.
One of the things that we talked about as staff, Mr. Mayor, internally was to piggyback on the county's small business loan program. They already have a program in place. They dedicated $1 million towards that program. It's actually costing $1 million plus 16%, because that's the administrative fee to manage that program for them. And what they do is they're going to have I think it's about 40 $25,000 forgivable loans for small businesses to apply. It looks like they've received more than the 40 applications. So one of the thoughts that maybe mayor and council could consider if they're looking at possibly helping businesses is to piggyback on that program that's already in place. And I've already talked to the county about that. They would be willing to immediately accept any of our ARPA money to do that. Just keep in mind that for, 16% is what the administrative cost would be on that. So that's another possibility. If you took $1 million of the 3.2 million and flipped it over to the small business forgivable loans that's already in place, you could do that too. Just remember it would be 1 million plus 16%. And we could do that. And that's another idea that we came up with.
No, that's a great idea, but one of the things that I wish we could do, and it all depends how the incentive program that supposedly our planning and zoning director is supposed to have brought to us already, and waivers that we were going to do for the downtown area, that we could use some of this money to offset those costs downtown.
Absolutely.
To revitalize the downtown, because if you have just a chunk of money and you can use it in one place and be effective, I think that'd be a lot better than try to disperse it in different directions, and then you might not get as much bang for the buck. But if for instance, some of the stores that are closed downtown, or they might want to remodel the inside of the store, they might want to section it off. There's going to be costs for planning and zoning and connections and all that this money could be used to offset and help the person that wants to put that business in there and to open up a new business downtown. It seems like a lot of money, 3 million. No, it's not.
No.
Not when you're going to, if you're going to build a warehouse, I'll give you an idea. When we did that, some of the members here in the council weren't here at the time. When we did the 90-day, remember, Mr. Messi, the 90-day for the development?
Yeah.
It was a good time. So what we did is we used it to offset and said, let's see how many businesses and how many homes will open up or get permits and stuff. One warehouse jumped at it right away, and that was a cold room and Timberline, and they cut their cost in half. Their cost in half for the connections, but nobody else did in 90 days. And the thing about the 90 days, Gene, I don't think you were here at the time. The 90 days was, if you apply for it right now, even though you're going to develop next year, it was still good. But you had to apply, you had to have plans, you had to have everything in review. Something like that, Mr. Messi? Yeah.
They had to apply with it.
Yeah. And then you could have developed the following year. Even at that, nobody jumped at it, because we were trying to see if we could come up with a plan for incentives and maybe a handful of homes open up. I would have jumped at it right away if I was going to be a developer, because I would have gotten a bunch of stuff, especially the cost on the connection fees. So I wouldn't want this money for it to go in that direction. That's the way I look at it. But if we could effectively use it in the downtown area to revitalize the downtown area and help with the cost and the incentives that the planning and zoning director talked about.
So I think we could come back with a plan if that's mayor and council's direction to staff, that's what they would like to see done with the ARPA money, to use it to offset new businesses in the downtown area. And we can come back with what we can define what the downtown area is, so we actually have a border or a limit saying, okay, it affects you, but not you. And then seeing what that looks like, what types of fees we can waive. Or when I say waive, what happens is the ARPA money pays that pays that for them, right? Uses that money, the cost for the permits and the cost for the connection stays the same. It's just that it's not coming out of their pocket, it's coming out of the ARPA money. And then when the ARPA money is gone or the the program goes away, then we either have to reevaluate it, right, or end it. We have to do something, right? So I think we could do that if that's Mayor and Council's direction on how to possibly apply the ARPA money. I think we can definitely do that. And then Mr. Massey could also make sure that that's an allowable use of the ARPA money.
Because, working to revitalize the downtown area would probably be something that almost everybody in Nogales would want to see, because everybody talks about that. But we've talked about this, John, before, and we talked about it here on the dais, that if the property owner is not on board, and it's happened before. Some of the property owners are not on board. They don't want to have that type of business there or this and that. That's why there's still some businesses. And then on top of that, the big elephant in the room, floodplains, FEMA, and the county. Can we do that? See, so a lot of things are going to fall on top of that. So this to discuss this, it's going to take a while, and so I think that's the best way to do it.
Yep. So that's where we're hoping to hear from you all. What are your what are your ideas so we can help you formulate your plan?
Mayor, Council, I just wanted to bring up one of the things that I'd like to recommend, or at least have Council consider. And so far, we think it's an allowable use with the ARPA funds, and that is to get economic development person, director, that pay for their salary. We could get someone specific to revitalization of or whatever, and have be a 4-year contract, and then at the end of that, we can see if how things are going, and maybe keep them on longer, or maybe that's all we need them for is 4 years. So it's just. That's something that's also, as far as we know, and Mike will look and make sure, but we think that that's allowable.
I've seen that happen before. You and I need to have a discussion on that. Yes, go ahead.
A time limit on obligation for these funds, or is it just expended all the way up to 2026?
Correct.
There's no obligation, period?
No, just 2026, and it has to be spent on what's allowable, or we'll probably have to pay it back. So we just got to make sure it's allowable.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Council.
Mr. Dickey, to your point, as far as getting a economic development specialist, didn't the federal government give NCD a $750,000 grant to do an incubator at the old Foxworth building, where they're going to have people there and they're going to be trying to revitalize downtown? Wasn't that a big deal that's going to happen? It's already written in stone
That they're going to be doing?
Yeah, they brought down, Congressman Grijalva brought down $750,000 specifically to redo the Foxworth building and do an incubator for businesses there to revitalize downtown through the NCD.
Entrepreneurship.
That's right, the grant that they're trying to get. Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know if they're getting a person specific. I'm thinking someone specific to us that can collaborate, represent the city, and help move things along. Some expertise that can do that. Obviously, that's up to council. I just think we have a really good planning zoning director, Sam Paz. He's got some ideas, and where he could use a little bit of help in that. But he also thinks that he can do it with the staff he has if we don't go as far as going out and getting someone. But anyway, staff's very interested in this, and to get some things going and start doing a little bit more and doing something downtown and get that going, keep the businesses that are there, attract new businesses. And we even talked to a couple business owners that are kind of excited. They're kind of doing their own thing too, but it'd be nice to have a representative from the city that's specifically trained to do this kind of stuff.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
so also what we might be able to incorporate into this if we plan to go ahead with annexation and grow Nogales, I don't know if we can use some of the funds for that.
Yeah, those are things we can look at. I mean, Mike's making a list here. I'm looking at his notes to see kind of what's used. And we'll do, if council, the direction kind of looks like we'll bring back a recommendation and a plan, and council can tweak it and give us direction at that meeting, or make a motion to approve whatever we bring. But anyway, but we want to make sure these funds are spent the way the council and the residents want them spent.
I think we should be able to focus on not just one section of Nogales, but all of Nogales. Sure. In my opinion, I think we should focus on the whole general area, not just one section. So. Okay, I think that's it for me.
Okay, members of the council? Yes, you guys have your task? Yeah. So, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Please adjourn.